Hi, I'm Tim Burke. Thanks for joining us today at Quest DaaS virtual event. We're excited about this event and the ability to demonstrate our capabilities in the DaaS space. Also excited about our guests today. We have Robert Young from IDC and Mohammed from Cisco, who will be speaking about Cisco Powered event, and Tanner Strickland, who will be talking about our capabilities at Quest in terms of our DaaS offering. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Robert.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Robert Young from IDC. I cover IDC's client and virtualization software practice as a research manager, and I'm going to talk to you today about why now is the time for cloud-hosted virtual client computing. Okay, so as far as agenda, I'm going to start with kind of diving into the challenges currently facing IT with their expanding landscape. I'm going to go into how virtual client computing can add benefits to that environment, heterogeneous environment, and but also talk about why there's been some kind of reluctance from IT to embrace virtual client computing and some of the challenges that they've faced. And then that will lead into why I feel that there are some unique benefits to hosted virtual client computing, and then go into kind of what IDC has seen as far as stats around growth drivers in the hosted virtual client computing market. And from there, I will go over some guidance as far as what customers should look for when looking for a partner in the client virtualization hosted model, and then we'll wrap things up. So first off, the changing IT landscape. For a number of years, IT has had significant control over the provisioning of software and OSs on corporate-owned devices. So they've really had a pretty homogeneous environment that they've had to support. But with the rapid acceleration and consumerization of IT, with BYOD and mobility trends, we're really seeing that shift. There's a number of untrusted devices and OSs and consumer-grade applications that are really just causing significant security and governance concerns for IT staff. They're also finding that even with these concerns, if they don't keep up with the pace of the business and implement modern technologies and end user empowerment, they face significant inefficiencies and costs, and even promote kind of rogue IT trends such as shadow IT. So IT is in this position right now where they basically have to adopt these modern technologies while still providing the business with the security and the governance for their proprietary data. So it's really about delivering IT as a service while running IT as a business. And so how do they accomplish this? Well, it's been pretty challenging to say the least. There's a slew of devices that are geographically dispersed. So one possible way to do this, and an efficient way of doing it, is to virtualize the client device, whether that's the entire desktop, or the applications, or a combination of the two. And that provides them with a level of centralized management that allows them to ensure that proper hardware configurations, software and OS currency, and allow them to kind of demonstrate compliance with industry regulations such as HIPAA, PCI compliance, etc. At the same time, while it brings benefits to the IT organization as far as gaining that IT governance and control that they need to protect the business, it also allows business users to leverage modern technologies, modern devices in a mobile fashion so they can be productive anywhere at any time on any device. So with such profound value propositions with virtual client computing, one may ask, well, why isn't everybody doing this, right? Why isn't virtual client computing, the dominant model for desktop delivery? Well, I'll first start off by saying that virtual client computing isn't a new concept, right? It's not new. But the fact is there hasn't been a significant uptick, mainly because of the fact that the complexity surrounding these implementations can be overwhelming to IT organizations that are already budget constrained and have, are struggling to keep up with their existing workloads. They have typically, to implement a client virtualization solution, it requires, bringing on additional networking, compute, storage, which has large upfront capital costs, and also IT staff on board may not have the expertise to really deliver a high availability virtualized desktop environment to their business users. So this has really slowed down the acceptance of virtual client computing in the enterprise. That said, with the advent of hosted virtual client computing, what IDC kind of refers to as WAS, which is the combination of desktop as a service and application as a service. These desktops can be delivered in a cloud computing environment, which can be broken into layers, which allows the hardware, software, and even the apps to each be outsourced potentially from different service providers. And these service providers are experts. They're dedicated to optimizing the user experience so that IT can, or the organization in general, can mitigate some of these VDI implementations, management, and performance concerns that I just previously talked about. They can also better scale the client virtualization instances by user or even by group as needs change, and without having to bring in additional infrastructure and the cost and workload associated with managing that infrastructure. And more importantly, again, they can get back to empowering business users and spending their focus there, as opposed to kind of keep the lights on activities with desktop management, which has really been an uphill battle for IT organizations, even in a traditional kind of client-server model. So again, we're seeing a lot of growth in the hosted virtual client computing market. That's across the board, whether it's on-prem or hosted, but we're seeing most of the growth coming from the hosted space. So, and a lot of this is associated with, IT organizations and business leaders as well, overcoming some of these initial fears that they had on cloud-hosted systems and services. I think businesses and IT leaders alike are starting to realize and accept the fact that we're in a cloud mobile world, and they need to start adapting to that now. So let's hit some interesting stats here on corporate liable smartphone shipments, for example. I mean, we're looking at these types of devices getting to 150 million units shipped by the year 2018. Employee liable smartphone shipments are expected to get to over 330 million units shipped by 2018. That's a significant amount of smartphones, and I'd like to highlight there the employee liable smartphones, which kind of indicates some BYOD momentum there. So in relation to that, we're seeing the virtual client computing market kind of grow relative to that movement as well, with 3.1 billion in 2004 to 4.7 billion in 2018, and the hosted portion of the virtual client computing market expected to get to 1.6 billion in 2018, which by the way is really may sound like a ways off, but we're really looking at just a few years from now, right? So so we're really seeing a lot of growth in the hosted segment of the client virtualization space. So while there's a lot of movement towards this hosted model for virtualized desktops and applications, for the host of reasons that I've spoke about, I think with cloud-hosted desktops, applications, just like anything that's delivered as a service, every provider is not created equally, right? So customers really have to kind of figure out which provider they were looking to partner with through this journey, right? And some of the key things that I've listed here, for customers to kind of have in the back of their mind, or actually in the forefront of their mind, when starting to build those partnerships and looking for a vendor to partner with. Number one, security. From identity management to VPNs to physical security, customers really need to understand how their data, their corporate data, is going to be protected, and how the service provider is protecting their infrastructure as well. Reliability. I mentioned earlier high availability. High availability is just as, if not more important, with desktop virtualization workloads than it is with server. Because with desktop virtualization workloads, end users are immediately and directly impacted by any type of performance degradations. In that same vein, it's important for customers to understand the SLAs that the service provider is offering. They must have clear, networking, data, as well as backup and DR plans established, and be able to present that in a clear, concise way to their customers. There should also be some flexible management of the OS and applications. As I mentioned earlier, certain organizations will have different expectations, unique expectations on their virtualized environment. SMBs may want to have a fully outsourced model for their applications, their desktops, and supporting services, where enterprises may want to bring in their established policies and procedures into their client virtualized environment. And then other services, right? This workspace as a service, it starts with the desktop. But really what what IT is going to be looking for, and end users are like, is that suite of solutions coming from a single provider. And this is really going to help IT simplify and streamline its operations. Instead of having to work with multiple vendors for each piece, they can have that kind of one point of contact to get an inclusive, comprehensive workspace solution. So in conclusion, I just kind of want to recap, on what I spoke about. The modern technology trends that are going on with the consumerization of IT, whether it's mobile, BYOD, they're causing, IT governance and desktop management complexities that are really have IT operations staff caught between a rock and a hard place. They know they have to optimize user experiences across varying device types in order to curb rogue IT trends, but they also have to make sure that they're protecting corporate data and corporate information, and also working within their budget constraints and with their existing staff. That's no small feat for IT. They also must, kind of look at ways to balance CapEx and OpEx expenditures, right? They need to find ways to better leverage their existing staff's expertise to support business expansions, mergers, and acquisitions. IT, is increasingly being faced with working with tight budgets and an explosive end user desktop environment. And this is why IDC sees that the hosted virtual client computing market will continue to grow in order to support such a dynamic environment. With that, I'd like to say thank you, and I've provided my contact information here for you to reach out with any questions that you may have on the client virtualization space.
Thanks, Robert. Great overview. Really appreciate that. And at this point in the presentation, I'd like to turn it over to Mohammed from Cisco to talk about the desktop as a service, and as well how it relates to the Cisco Powered network.
Great. Thank you, Tim, and thanks, Robert. And thank you for hosting this really exciting event. My name is Mohammed Abdel. I am with Cisco. I'm in the Cloud and Managed Services organization. Before I get into DaaS and Cisco Powered, I do like to thank Quest for being a partner for 23 years. That's a great milestone. 20 years of those as a gold partner. And you folks out there know what it takes to be a gold partner. A lot of commitment, a lot of investment. And in the last few years, you invested in becoming a master cloud and managed services partner, services provider, to go and able to offer a full suite of Cisco-powered cloud services, infrastructure as a service, desktop as a service, and disaster recovery as a service, and the disaster recovery as a service to cover both. That's a great, great suite of services to really provide to your customers end-to-end the entire solution, one-stop shop, and we appreciate that. To us, that's an innovation and customer satisfaction, and that's what brings us together and strengthen our relationship, and we appreciate that. And I think over the last few years, you have gained and earned a lot of awards from Cisco for focusing on customers and their satisfaction, so we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into the exciting service of DaaS. This is one of my favorite application and service. DaaS is not just a service, it's really a strategic initiative. It is a cloud-based virtual desktop and application delivery through the cloud. And the goal of it is to simplify virtualization, desktop, application, and bring your own device, BYOD. From the benefit of it, it really makes sense right now for customers. 45% of global enterprise IT decision makers are right now considering hosted cloud desktop as a service. That's a huge number. The reason for that, it makes sense. It makes sense for any organization regardless of the size of the organization, whether it's a small organization, medium organization, or large organization. It addresses the need within the organization on different levels. So the line of business, they're looking for productivity application. They're looking for growth. They're looking for risk management, agility. DaaS provide that to them at that level. The CIO and the IT side, they're looking for all of those. In addition, they're looking for security, and more security. They're looking for SLAs. They're looking for guarantees. This DaaS offers that. And then to the CEO, top line and bottom line, this is an OpEx transaction. This is an operation transaction. This is not a CapEx. If you are getting the same and similar experience hosted by a certified partner versus on-prem, what would you rather have? Spend the expenditure or have it as an operation expense? And now the last, which is the key area here, the end user. The end user getting secure access anywhere, everywhere, from any device. If I'm an end user making a presentation and all of a sudden my laptop goes dark, what do I do? This DaaS will save my presentation. It will take me a couple of minutes to log into my account and be able to retrieve any of my applications. Now, all of these services, all of the different integration, the security, the SLAs that, Tim, you're going to go into it a little bit more in details, they're all backed up by an ecosystem of partners that are leading partners in this technology. Citrix, for example, this owned by VMware, Intel, and of course, under the umbrella and the integration of Cisco Powered. And that guarantees the delivery of the service to the end user. That's where the security, the SLAs, availability, and so forth are pretty much secure to the end user. How do we put that together? This is what, when we work with our ecosystem of partners, as well as yourself, we put it when we call CVD, Cisco Validated Design. We want to make sure those services and the technology work together so the end user is able to get the finished product with full satisfaction. And we go beyond that. Those requirements that we put in a CVD, we extract more requirements for the actual service delivery that is audited and certified by a third-party auditing firm. What that means to our customers out there, you are getting a service that is fully certified, integrated, and supported by all the ecosystem partners under the umbrella of Cisco Powered, delivered by our partner Quest. So that is what we feel and how we work on the DaaS side with you and our partners. Now, to the Cisco Powered and our role. From a Cisco side, our first and foremost role is to provide you with the best of the best solutions and services so you can offer to your customers. And we work with many ecosystem partners to do that. But the Cisco Powered program itself was created and developed with you customers in mind. And the main objective of it is to help enable you identify the right partner that will offer you the right service that meet your needs and your requirements. That's really the main intent of it. We want to make sure we shorten that sales cycle or the evaluation cycle that you have to go through to be able to find the right service. So we do that on your behalf under the Cisco Powered umbrella. Our partners, they have to go through a very rigorous audit under we have a program called the Cloud and Managed Services program, in a very programmatic way to be able to go through what are those requirements that will meet your needs, meet your what we call a preference, customer preference requirements. You go through that to make sure that when you are and us offering the service and you see the Cisco Powered logo, that means the service that you are getting from this certified partner has gone through a complete audit, a complete certification under the umbrella of Cisco Powered. So in a nutshell, anytime you are getting a Cisco Powered service, it is based on a validated architecture design, just to make sure that the checks and balances are there. End-to-end security, that's very important to really address the CIO and the IT, that their application are pretty much secure. Everything that we do is pretty much documented. That's very important. As well as the fact that we commission and hire a third-party auditing firm to go on the partner side to go and do the validation and do the audit. We want to make sure when you get that service is fully certified so we can save you the time and money when you want to adopt the service. So from a Cisco perspective, this is an investment we are trying to make in both ways. One is to help our customers save time to value, and we want to help our partners who have invested in the technology to have it as a vehicle to really get closer to our customers. And that's the essence of Cisco Powered. So with that, I think DaaS should stand for dazzling, in my opinion. And if it's not on your radar, I hope it gets on your radar. With that, I turn it back to Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'd like now to give you a quick overview of Quest. We've been doing this for quite some time, and as Mohammed mentioned in his presentation, a Cisco partner for over 20 years, founded in the early 80s. So we're not exactly new to this game. We've brought multiple partners and vendors together to make our solutions. And over the last many years, we've had thousands of users that we brought onto the DaaS space, the infrastructure as a service space, and named by CRN as Company of the Year in the cloud space here recently. So as you can see, to bring, as Mohammed mentioned and Robert mentioned, the idea that you have to bring all these technologies together to make DaaS work, or any of these infrastructures in the cloud work, and we've certainly done that over the years with these partners that we have fully badged with, as well as with Cisco. The power of the cloud in terms of what we are offering, again, as Mohammed mentioned, is the Cisco Powered Cloud. So in the middle there is Quest DaaS, and that's important, and that's what we're talking about today. But the interrelationship between infrastructure as a service and DR as a service can't be missed. A lot of these functions work very closely together and need to work closely together to have a successful implementation. So we've brought desktop as a service, DR as a service, infrastructure as a service, as well as all our 20, 25 years of networking expertise, server expertise that has to make this solution be available. The other key point in specifically delivering DaaS as well as infrastructure as a service is the availability of what we call our global service delivery centers. These applications can't be hosted somewhere in one location and delivered all over the world. So we've implemented our solutions in what we refer to as global delivery centers around the world, and this allows us to facilitate the needs and the latency requirements that so many of these applications have. So again, key part of what our offering is and how it differentiates in the marketplace. This is a critical point here, this Quest Flex. We call it Quest Flex, and the reason it's critical is that we don't give you a specific, this is how you have to do it, hope it works approach. As Mohammed pointed out and as Robert pointed out, customers, you all have a specific need that you're trying to accomplish. So we can provide it in our Quest Cloud through our 22 different centers around the world. Also, we've had customers who said to us, you know, we need it in a cloud format. The current topic is local cloud. Can you deliver this to us on our prem behind our firewalls? So in our Quest Flex model, we deliver that. And we'll build out the application, whether it's infrastructure as a service or DaaS, and put it behind your firewalls. We'll own it, we'll support it, we'll manage it, and deliver it to you as a service. That's become very successful in a number of implementations. The third option is a hybrid. Maybe it's partly in our cloud, maybe it's partly behind your firewalls on your prems. That again is a growing part of what we do. We're very, in the idea of Quest Flex is that we address what your needs are, not what we think you should have to work with. The reason we're seeing DaaS come up so often recently, of course, is there's always the issue of OpEx versus CapEx. Can I buy this as a service? I don't have to expend all the capital to make this happen. That is certainly there, and it's a growing part of many companies' discussions. But also the idea of complexity. What we typically find is companies have tried to deliver a VDI solution and have had challenges with that VDI solution, specifically because all these different technologies have to come together. The servers, the network, the desktop, the security, all of this has to work in unison, and oftentimes organizations may not have the resources in-house to make that happen, and as a result, they may have poor performance, they may have bad bandwidth, they're not getting the experience they'd really like, and end up thinking that VDI is not a good solution. Where in reality, it's not VDI that's an issue, it's really how it's all put together and how it makes it work. In our environment, we've been doing it for many, many years now. We understand how it works. We understand how to work with our customers to make it work. I want to give an example here of an organization that we've worked with recently under the Cisco Powered relationship, as well as defining for this customer, again, the idea of flexibility in making their situation work. Multiple users out doing the BYOD thing all over the country, and they needed access to very critical data in remote environments, over the internet, over Wi-Fi, sitting in Starbucks, sitting anywhere that they were at. We provided a solution, highly secured for them, to the extent secured that we have no access to any of their data. This is what we call a non-trust environment, and we were able to deliver this in a very timely manner, probably within 60 to 90 days, in an application that they may have been working with for a long time, trying to figure out how to work this. We see this in not only with mobile requirements, but also with people who have development requirements around the world, and giving those developers access to trusted environments, DaaS has presented a great opportunity. In the DaaS space, what we find also is that customers have different requirements in terms of how they wanted to deploy this. This chart shows the different requirements that are part of making a DaaS work. There's the hardware, the support, there's the facilities and the security. How do we provide the bandwidth? How do we provide the network? Who's going to manage the desktop? Who's going to manage the OS? All those questions have to be addressed. Below the waterline, you see a number of things that historically have been part of what we deliver. Above the waterline, what a customer would typically deliver in this kind of implementation. This can vary. Customers sometimes will work with us and say, we want you to define the desktop, we want you to support the desktop, or they'll say they'll do it. But again, very flexible environment, but specifically some key items there in the idea of security that have to be addressed in delivering this capability. What I want to show here are various models that desktops can have in regards to delivery. The one I want to say on the far right is the custom idea. Some of you may just want to deliver a specific application. As Robert mentioned, it's application delivery. It's not really desktop delivery. So we have defined 3 different desktops: professional, enterprise, and ultimate. The key is that these can be really of any infrastructure design that you would like in terms of delivering that desktop. And we work with you to understand that, and again, understand how you want us to deliver that to you as an organization. To try it out, and we're going to demo it here in a few minutes, so that would be a great opportunity to watch Tanner do the actual demo. But we also offer a free 14-day trial that's available that oftentimes leads into a proof of concept. But this 14-day trial gives you a chance to evaluate the overall performance, connect the desktops to various, whether it be iPads or Macs or PCs or Chromebook or Android, however you need to connect that and to see how that experience looks. And then test multiple locations. You have people in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. How do they interface with this? And so with that, I'd like to move now to actually turn it over to Tanner and have Tanner deliver us a demo of the solution.
So one of the many benefits of Cisco Powered Desktop as a Service is that Quest has the flexibility and the customer has the flexibility of really deciding what's the best virtualization platform for them. How do they want this delivered in terms of what technology? So today what I wanted to do is actually give you a demonstration of one of those virtualization platforms that we're using today to deliver Desktop as a Service. Users can connect into their virtual desktops from just about anywhere and any device, whether it's your Windows PC that you're seeing here, or whether it's your Mac or your iPad or your Android tablet. And the most common is you're going to install a client or an app onto your virtual desktop or onto your laptop. And here I have a desktop called Quest Marketing, which I'm going to select. And I'm going to log in here using my domain credentials. And as I'm logging into this desktop, you're going to notice that this is a full Windows 7 64-bit operating system that I'm connecting into this desktop. This environment, our Desktop as a Service environment, is in full compliance with Microsoft. You have the option of running true Windows 7 or Windows 8 desktop OS on these virtual desktops. Now, you also do have the flexibility here where you can run Server 2008 or Server 2012 if you needed to as well. A couple things to point out in this environment is that these desktops are integrated into your network. So users, while they're logging in using their domain credentials, they also have the ability here of printing to their network printers. So whether they're working in their office or whether they're all across the world, they can still print back to their local office. They also have the ability here to communicate with their local file shares or any other network resources that they need to. Because these desktops are integrated into your network, all of your group policies, all of your settings that you're applying to each user's virtual desktop today, or physical desktop today, can be applied exactly the same way here inside of this environment as well. Now, for those users, or for those organizations who are moving their users to Chromebooks, you don't have the ability of installing a client. You don't have the ability of installing an application or an app on that Chromebook. The way to access those desktops is through their HTML5 browser. So the user has the ability, again, of authenticating with their local domain credentials and being presented with their desktop via the browser. So they can select their desktop, which logs them in using HTML5. And as you're noticing here, this is a Windows Server 2008 R2 desktop. And again, this desktop is fully integrated into your network, tied in with your group policies, tied in with all of your network resources that you're supporting and managing today. As an IT administrator, you have the ability of managing desktop as a service all through a web console, where you can build pools of desktops and you can map desktops to users without worrying about ordering new hardware or managing and supporting your infrastructure. So as you're logging in here, this is a very secure, very isolated environment where there is no trust relationship required, meaning this is all managed through your domain, and Quest, as your service provider, has no access to your desktops, has no access to your network, and has no ability of getting inside of any of these portals. So the IT administrator can come into their enterprise center, create a pool of desktops. Now they can either create individual desktop-based or session-based. Individual desktop or more VDI-based desktops. Session-based or more RDS or remote desktop services. Allows you to deliver shared desktops or stream applications for your users. So you can hit next, follow a simple wizard here to build out your pools of desktops. And in this case, I'm going to create a pool for accounting. I'm going to select my desktop models or my hardware models or hardware configurations. These are any combination of vCPUs, RAM, and storage. An enterprise level model is a 2 vCPU, 4 gigs of RAM with about 60 gigs of storage. Now you can also select the desired protocols to give your users the ability of connecting. Here I'll select PC over IP. If you have HTML5 enabled, you would see that listed here as well to allow users to connect using their Chromebook. I can also select the desktop type. I can make this accounting pool dynamic, meaning the desktops get refreshed as soon as the users log off. They're non-persistent. Or I can make them static, which is more of a one-to-one mapping where the desktops are persistent. The user gets the same desktop every time they log on, and their changes always remain. I can also select my gold pattern or my templates here to apply to this accounting pool, whether it's Windows 7 64-bit or Server 2008 or Windows 8. You have that flexibility here of choosing what type of operating system you want to run on here. You can also now select the amount of desktops that you want to build. You can review the pool. And this will give you a snapshot of the new pool that you're about to build. If everything looks good, you hit create, and it will build those desktops for you inside of this pool. Finally, you can come into the mapping area here, and you can start mapping desktops to your users. You have the ability of doing this a couple different ways. One is through your users, where you have the ability of actually mapping a desktop to a user, or simply removing a mapping from a user. If for some reason that user leaves the organization, you have the ability of very instantly removing that mapping. You also can power the desktop off. You can reboot the machine. If the user is actually connected onto the desktop, you'll have the flexibility of actually disconnecting the user or logging them off of their desktop as well. You can also set this up using groups. So you have your AD groups that you're bringing into the system as well, and instead of individually mapping desktops to users, you actually can map a pool of desktops. So maybe I want to have a developers pool that I created mapped to everybody in my DT users group. This will automatically map the desktops to your users. So desktop as a service really allows that IT administrator to scale the business to the requirements needed. And I hope that helps paint a clearer picture of the different capabilities you have with desktop as a service. And now I believe we're going to open it up to some questions for the audience.
Thank you, Tanner. We have a couple questions here we'd like to pose to everyone. The first one comes from Mohammed, which is interesting. To Mohammed, what is the real benefit of having multiple CP offers?
That's a great question, especially coming from a Mohammed. I think these services that we talked about, those are enterprise class services. So they do come with compliances, come with a lot of checks and balances, as we mentioned. Having multiple Cisco powered services from one provider does provide great integration, simplicity for the customer, and end-to-end security. Having security, having SLAs, having that one partner to work with across all of those services is a real benefit, especially in this one, when you have IaaS, DaaS, and DRaaS. Having DRaaS covering the IaaS and DaaS, that's a real benefit. Having it from one Cisco-powered service provider is a real benefit. So that's really just more simplicity for the customer. They don't have to go and evaluate multiple providers. Having it from one is a real benefit. Hopefully that answered the question.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Mohammed. The next question is, can we discuss DaaS versus VDI solutions?
Great question. Tanner, do you want to take a shot
Sure.
at that?
So desktop as a service, in many cases, is really a VDI environment, more delivered as a subscription-based service where Quest is managing and supporting the underlying infrastructure. So, and again, many cases it is being delivered with a VDI platform, whether that platform is running inside of one of our data centers or, as Tim mentioned, have the flexibility of running it in an environment running in your own data centers or hybrid model. Desktop as a service could also be more of just application delivery as well, where maybe not necessarily using a full VDI platform, but more delivering just straight applications or server session type of environments.
Great, thank you. The next question comes from Max. Where can I find more information from IDC's perspective on DaaS?
Sure. I actually just published a white paper on the benefits of DaaS, which is available on the Quest Content Hub, and it should be available in the chat window. I think we have the URL put up on the chat window of this webcast for you to go ahead and access that. In addition, I encourage folks to go ahead and contact me directly using the contact information I provided through my presentation of this webcast to gain research or just general guidance around how DaaS can help them drive their mobile and global workforce initiatives.
Great. Next question comes from Tim. How does licensing work in a virtual desktop?
Again, Tanner, do you want to
Sure, I can help with that.
Thanks.
So in desktop as a service, the licensing that the customer would be, what you're probably referring to is everything that is the applications and the operating system, everything kind of inside of these virtual machines. In most cases, the application licensing in many ways is the same as physical desktops. Your applications that you can install these applications on the desktop and leverage the same licensing that you're using on your physical desktops. The difference is the operating system. So as I mentioned in my demonstration, you have the flexibility of running genuine Windows 7 or Windows 8 or even more of a skin kind of Win Server 2008 or 2012. If you're running Windows 7 or you want to run a true desktop OS, if your organization does not have Microsoft Software Assurance, you would need to purchase what is called a VDA license, which stands for Virtual Desktop Access License. It's an annual license that you purchase through Microsoft to run Windows 7 or Windows 8. If you're looking at running Server 2008 or Server 2012 as the desktop OS, you can actually leverage, we can provide that and leverage it as a SPA license for that operating system.
Thank you, Tanner. And our last question comes from Sean. Can your DaaS solution be dedicated to enhance our requirements?
I'll
Tim,
take
you wanna
that,
go
Tim.
that?
Sure. So absolutely, it can be. And that kind of goes back to how you want this deployed. We can deliver this as a full dedicated environment. Certainly, some cases in desktop as a service, there is some multi-tenancies in the back end for some deployments. However, if there's a requirement, we can deliver this as a full dedicated environment, both in our delivery centers or in your on-premise location as well.
Well, those were great questions. Thank you very much. If we didn't get to your question, please reach out to us directly, Tanner or Robert or any of us, and be glad to get back with you. Also, if you would like to try the software out, the DaaS experience, we have that trial that we can make available and be glad to coordinate that with you through the appropriate URLs or through Tanner or any of us, we can make that happen. So again, thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.